So to make things even crazier, because I know this guy ain't going to calm anything down, Zac Jackson joins us right now. He's on the Wise Heart Right, We Make It Right, Call Car Right hotline. Hello, Zach.
Hello, gentlemen. How are we doing?
We're doing well. You've heard Lima and I go after each other about this subject now for the last couple of weeks, on and off, depending on when news stories have come out. Who's right and who's wrong? Am I right about Brendan Sorsby, or is Lima right there, Zach?
That's quite an assumption you've made that I'd be listening to this radio show when I didn't have to.
Oh, you lying sack of potatoes.
I don't know that anybody's right about Brendan Sorsby because, I think we know most of the facts, right? If there's something hidden behind, and that would justify teams just saying, hey, we're not going here. But, where the Browns are and the fact that Sorsby would be kind of a redshirt player anyway, and where they've put themselves with this, it's almost malpractice to not make a bid. So, like I said, if he was throwing games or there's something deeper, darker in here, then no. But I just look at it like I don't buy the argument that they have enough drama at the position or they have enough uncertainty at the position. That's why you have to do it. They've had decades of drama and uncertainty at this position, and this is an organization that has not run from red flags. They've run to them. What team over the past 5 years has tried to buy low on guys more than the Browns? I don't know. There might be one or two others. There's not six, right? So, why would that stop now, especially when you have the opportunity to say, okay, we have 2 early fourth-round picks that we could bid, or could we go with a third-round pick? And, that's where it gets gray, but, being in on the pursuit to me is not gray at all.
How high would you be willing to go right off the rip?
I probably have to start with the 3. There's much more nuance to the conversation, but I just don't think any of the teams that are like the Browns, Cardinals, Jets, Dolphins, right? And they're all different, but they're kind of similar in this vein. I don't think anybody's going there with a 2, the way that the league values high 2s right now, and especially with next year's draft coming up. So I think if you want to say, hey, we really, really want to get him, it's the 3. If it's, hey, we're making a bid because we're interested and we don't hate the idea of or a plan that we've put together for how to proceed from here, then it's certainly one of the 4s because they also own the Giants' 4th-round pick. And then both of those, the way the supplemental draft is structured, are considered Tier A for how the lottery breaks out.
What are you hearing, Zach, about the character stuff when it comes to what he is being accused of and what he has fessed up to and the investigations that were going on? When it originally came out, I thought he was being accused of throwing games, and this was the Black Sox scandal. And now about a month removed from that and hearing his agent and his lawyer and then seeing, more of the information that's come out, I just don't think it's anywhere near as bad as what originally people were getting carried away with.
Yeah, I'm not going to claim that I'm deep in the background at this point. I'm not sure who is, but I reached out to 2 people who I reach out to in the league and ask, where I stand here. And one said, absolutely, I'm not doing it. And one said, absolutely, the Browns have to do it. So, I think that's probably the wide variety. And if the Browns stance ends up being exactly what Todd Monken spewed in that awkward press conference that was happening while Myles Garrett was getting traded, I understand that. But this is a quarterback prospect, and it's not based on what he's done. It's based on what he could be. And you hear Daniel Jeremiah and Todd McShay talk about him in terms of what he could be, and you look at the positional value and the circumstances here. If you're anything short of absolutely hating the circumstances, then you have to make a bid. And I guess in 3 or so weeks, we'll find out.
All right, the actual tape, and we're joined by Zac Jackson right now on the hotline from The Athletic. The actual tape and his dimensions, that stuff, you can understand why, even though he has been a roller coaster of a player and he struggled mightily in the last 2 Novembers or whatever, he was still going to be the highest paid or one of the highest paid quarterbacks in all of college football this year. And he's 6'3" and can run and has a more than sufficient arm. Those things will pop. You can understand why teams would salivate.
Yes. He's very much an unfinished product as a player and now quite obviously as a person. But yeah, he was always going to make more money in college football this year than he was, and he was going to have a chance to work on those things and be surrounded by good players. And I mean, Texas Tech is still probably the Big 12 favorite. I don't know this for sure. Ken and I aren't obligated to watch Big 12 football anymore. But without him, they're probably still the favorite. And that's just based on what they've spent, right? But yeah, this is like 6'3", 235 can run. Only 2 full years as a starter. Some really good before the end of last year being bad. But really kind of, I think, definitely had everybody's attention the way he played in the middle of last year. So now you add all this and you wonder what went wrong last year. But he's certainly an interesting prospect, and he would absolutely be a top 40 to 14 prospect in last year's draft or in the one that's coming up.
We were both obligated to watch that Big 12 football. I'll be here this year just for the love of the game, Zach. But do you actually like him? Do you watch more college football than just about anybody, as much as anybody in the city, as anybody who covers sports? Do you actually like him?
Yes. Like I thought he was a really good player when I watched him last year. Now, did I think he was a first rounder? No. Do I think it's a fine argument? Even though it's just mostly a June sports talk argument, like would he have actually gone before Ty Simpson? Is he a much more tantalizing NFL prospect than Ty Simpson is? Yes. Now, what's it come down to? When would this stuff have come out? Does Ty Simpson just fit the Rams in the way they want to play offense versus what Brendan Sorsby might be 2 or 3 years from now? But that's the discussion. That's why all these teams have to be in on it. The Jets aren't giving up any of their 3 first-rounders. And like I said, I'll be stunned if any team gives up a second-rounder. But like teams like the Bucks and the Panthers and the Eagles late in the third, it's going to make teams like the Browns and the Dolphins and the Cardinals think about whether they have to use their third if they really want Sorsby. And we're not going to know who really wants, because this is the ultimate posturing thing, right? Like I roll my eyes sometimes at the regular draft posturing, Ken, that these teams do or go out of their way to do, because you have to make the picks anyway. Like it all comes out on Friday night or Thursday night, right? But like here in the supplemental draft, you don't have to. So the posturing, at least in theory, actually becomes an important part of the process.
One thing I am seeing from many, not just like the Shedeur Sanders fans, just Browns fans in general, is why already with a quarterback competition going on, why would you muddle things anymore? Why would you bring in yet another QB? We saw last year how having 4 at the start of the year, what that did, almost seemed to sabotage the entire room. What would your answer be?
That's the simplest answer of this whole thing. It would not affect this quarterback competition at all. This quarterback competition is Deshaun Watson versus Shedeur Sanders to either be the short-term or in Shedeur's case, long-term quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson, not in the plans. Dylan Gabriel, not in the plans. Taylor Green, almost certainly not in the plans. Where do you stand on Shedeur? I don't know. But Brendan Sorsby would be a red shirt. Brendan Sorsby would be a project. Brendan Sorsby would be adding an asset at a reduced price that could potentially pay off. It has nothing to do with Deshaun versus Shedeur on July 30th or even August 14th. Nothing at all. What
are the possibilities he gets suspended? Do we know? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a real possibility.
Because everybody's bringing up Butte.
Yeah, but he was never, this was post. He was not penalized by the NCAA. Terrell Pryor was penalized by the NCAA, but Terrell Pryor was not he was suspended. He was not expelled from college football. So there's no apples-to-apples comparison here. And that Terrell Pryor thing was so long ago when you think about it. I actually covered his pro day at a high school in the middle of the western Pennsylvania hills, and that was straight bizarre. The Sorsby pro day is going to be interesting because that's how you posture here, right, is you send a whole group to it, whether you're interested or not, or you just send one area scout and try to make teams think you're not interested. So that July 10th pro day is going to be fascinating.
Zach, we had a clip of yours from your podcast, a terrific podcast, and a great theme song to start the podcast. I know you've gone through a few of them over time. You said that Deshaun Watson has had the best throws of camp, but then would follow them up with some of the worst throws you'll ever see, which is not all that different from what we've seen for the last 4 years from Deshaun Watson. So what does that mean for Shedeur?
Yeah, well, I think my only spring conclusion there's not really any conclusions. This was a new offense. This was a new environment. Deshaun's playing for the first time. But I think it's a fair spring conclusion to say he's the same player he's been here, which is an inconsistent player, not accurate, bad decisions. He's just not any good. And there's no point in the Cleveland Browns of 2026 who are playing for the future playing him. I think and I hope that they're starting to come around to that thought. But he's just not ever going to take that next step. Deshaun Watson of 2020 is Deshaun Watson of 2020. The Browns made an incredibly bad trade, and it is absolutely comical that he would still be on the team, let alone still be in the mix. And all spring football did for me was confirm that.
Zac Jackson, strong stuff on the Wise Heart Right, We Make It Right, Call Kyle Right hotline. All right, so by the way, I want to ask you this. Is this we got to get the thought out of being a one and done when it comes to Todd Monken, correct?
You would like to think that, Ken, and you would hope that. I don't have any idea where this thing is going to go. And like I said, I do hold out a level of optimism for a Todd Monken offense that clearly has upgraded at receiver and in many ways is getting a fresh start. I think Judkins and Fannin both have a chance to be really like near top of the league players. And, they needed to upgrade the receiving core. It wasn't going to be hard to upgrade the receiving core, but to me, they pretty clearly have. So I have optimism for Todd Monken, but, we're going to argue and people are going to argue with us about, are they tanking? Are they trying to win? What are they doing? I mean, they answered that question. They traded Myles Garrett. They realized where they were and that it's a long way out. And I think over the last 15 or so months, they've done a really good job of cleaning up their own mess. But this is a restart, and this is adding a new core and all of these things. So, yeah, I would think that he's going to be here, and he was chosen to be a part of it. But I don't really know how this season's going to go. I feel like the goal is not to win, and the goal is going to be interesting with a truth-telling head coach and a young offense and a lot of moving parts and maybe older guys who start to really realize that the goal isn't to win.
Zach, quickly before we have one other thing I want to get to you about, how are the Browns going to recover from losing their vice president of strategy, who your colleague deemed one of the smartest people in football, Andrew Healy, to the Vikings?
I think they're still going to have the biggest front office and the biggest analytics department in the league. I think they would need 25 more deletions for that to be in question. So, yeah, I think that the show's going to go on in Berea when the lights come back on there in a few weeks.
All right, so LeBron James right now is celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the championship overseas. I don't know when that party is ending. I also don't know where he's going to end his NBA career.
Yeah.
I said it would be kind of sad for him to end with the Lakers, but it seems like that is what more and more people seem to think he's going to do, or even Golden State. How do you feel about what could be his swan song?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's probably unlikely that he comes here, but he likes to flirt. He likes the thought, and the rumors at my country club are that LeBron's joining Firestone, and LeBron can get on any golf course in the world anytime he wants.
Whoa! Wait a minute!
Come on!
I didn't know you belonged to a country club. Whoa!
I know.
Oh, wow! All
I didn't think you did.
That anti-Shador stuff is very lucrative, apparently.
Wow.
You finally made a funny. 10 years on the radio. You finally set ahead of business.
Oh, my God. So, wait, you got people telling you he's coming back?
Yeah, well, the door is open, and I think it is. I'm fascinated. Like, my thought on the Cavs is a very outside observer. There's just no way they can run it back, right? And it's awkward, and they've put themselves in a tough spot. And teams, like the discussion you guys had, like teams would trade to be them. But, they can't possibly run this group back. They have to try to make some moves. And, like, if LeBron likes what he sees and feels like he has a role, I don't think he's coming back to the Cleveland specifically for a retirement tour. That might be part of it. But I think in the right where he thought he had the right role, and it's the retirement tour, and it's the sentimentality, and it's a chance to win. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't be in the mix, because there's no ideal spot for him, at least as of right now. So, interesting few weeks, and certainly a new spot for him, because the times he's done this before, he is the centerpiece. He's the talk of everything. Well, at his age now, he's not that anymore, but he's still LeBron James.
Zach, always enlightening. Thank you so much for the time. All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Zac Jackson on the Wise Heart Right, We Make It Right, Call Kyle Right hotline. Do you want to talk about LeBron when we come back?
Oh, I think we have to. There's another star in the East we have to talk about. Things are getting interesting. We knew when the Giannis stuff would reach that point before the draft that the rumors would be flying, and they are flying.
And he called it malpractice to not go after another problem.